imagine. Well, look at tier 4.
Oh, that's the one. Expansive Branch Road.
Yeah. So very good.
Yeah. Where you at? Where you at?
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and staff have returned with the overlay, or I guess the new map, depicting where in the deferred development district it could be possible to do a tier 2. These are lands that are not already in conservation and preservation. So Mr. Rice, will you pick it up from there?
Sure. So the map that you have in front of you on the screen and the hard copy, what we did was turned on the deferred development district as tier 2, and the deferred development district is 18,000 acres. And it's kind of ironic, but when you turn on the protected lands map, which includes the state-owned properties, other preservation there, and the resource protection zone associated with Madeline Creek, it is within like 5 acres of exactly half that would be already protected and would remain in tier 4, and the other half going to tier 2. So 9,000 one way and 9,000 the other. Would have never guessed it would be that close at this scale, but it is.
So we have 18,000 total acres in the deferred development district. Of that, 9,000 acres are already in conservation.
Correct.
Okay, and is there any opinion or any feedback in terms of how this fits in with the law or what have you? And I think Commissioner Robinson has a question, so it may piggyback on that.
We believe that it is consistent. The staff from Maryland Department of Planning is here. If you would like to get an opinion from them, they're certainly available.
My question is, how does this tier 2 land that has just been added to the map impact the Madeline watershed? Because it looks awfully close.
Well, by showing the resource protection zone as tier 4, you're capturing that floodplain area, streams associated with Madeline. So you have that protection shown in the tier 4 status. Outside of that, we have other protections with soil conservation and sediment erosion control plans associated with development. At one point, there was a recommendation by the Planning Commission to look at ways to expand the resource protection zone in that area beyond what it is now through adjusting our existing regulations. So that's something that we could bring forward in the future. So there are other ways of getting at that too.
Your position is that this is perfectly legal.
We feel this meets the intent of the septic bill. Yes.
And Mr. Paul, you agree?
Well, first it's on the map, and we, as I hope it's been demonstrated, obviously want to work with the county, we had to recommend the map to go with you tonight, that you saw from staff earlier, but deferred development district is it's been in place since at least the early 90s, it is an area planned for sewer, but for very, very long extents as far as the outer limits of foreseeable development. What I can tell you from our growth model is that within the tier 1 on that map right now, there's enough development supply to accommodate the total county projection up to 2035. Is more than enough. So what I would suggest is that the county take a look at how much of new area for sewer they need within a planning horizon, within increments of time. I think that we'd be glad to look at it, and get back to you in more detail. Certainly, some of it is probably fine. I mean, that's a significant addition. It's hard for me to sit here by my spot and say, sure, we're totally fine with it. Again, for some of the areas that may be of the key interest to the county, if they want to be in Tier 3, maybe this could be focused on more, and this could be perhaps a higher priority to bring into Tier 1 and Tier 2 in the future. Taking off that whole new amount of development one bite seems like an awful lot, and I know the need for the full deferred development district for future growth has been debated for a long time. Probably, certainly, some of it makes a lot of sense, but to just throw all that on there right now without us looking at it, I can't tell you a whole lot about where we'd end up on it.
Mr. Law, I guess my question is, I understand, the concept behind Tier 2, but comparing that to the March 11th map, and it just seems that when we go back to do the comp plan in light of this, would that not mean that these areas would all be projected to be made a part of our water and sewer plan? And that because we're putting water and sewer there, we're projecting water and sewer there, wouldn't that indicate that we're looking for high-density development? I mean, obviously, prime sewer lines are going to get a lot, to be much more costly. So that's what, I mean, I understand that 2 is viewed as 4 for the time being, but I don't know how, just looking at this, how this couldn't force our hands with a comp plan that would not, I'm speaking for myself, be the direction I see it would be appropriate to go.
Well, Tier 2 is for areas that the local government plans to extend central sewer, which, again, planning 101, as you all very well know, is that you extend sewer where you want the dense development, or at least compact, right, your growth area. And even the Tier 1 today is not built out by any means. Like I said, there's enough capacity for 20 more years of growth just within Tier 1. And that's if all the growth went into Tier 1, which we all know it won't do. I guess the other thing I would say to you is that I encourage you all to keep in mind that this map is not going to be chiseled in stone. The tier maps are meant to be dynamic, just like your local planning processes. You revisit your comp plan every so often, and the other plan. So, again, we're going to have to work with the county to figure out what our recommendation would be for how much Tier 2 to add. Just sitting here seeing it for the first time, it looks like a lot to add in. There may be subsets, may be a priority for the county to add in now, and then revisit it when we get further down the road. And the growth pressure suggests that you need to add more supply to demand. It's a supply-demand type piece, and part of the septic bill does speak to Tier 2 areas having a relationship being linked to what the demand is for future growth. So that's part of the language on Tier 2.
And we're saying that by making this Tier 2, that this would be our future growth. I mean, in other words, if as you do your water and sewer plan, you plan out your water and sewer, this is already, by putting it in Tier 2, and then assuming you would match up a comp plan to correlate with that, we're essentially saying that this is, at the time that we have a water and sewer plan that supports it, this would be developed. And I understand what you're saying, that these are fluid things and these could change, but that's what this tier map says, right?
The tier map, if this was your tier map, it would say it's the county's plan to develop those areas as their development district.
So, but it's perfectly legal, from what we're hearing, at least from Mr. Rice said it's a legal map. It's just that along with that comes the understanding. So now, even if it's legal, then it comes down to, do we feel this is the way that we want to go?
Well, I'm not prepared to say right now and tell you for certain it's legal. Again, I've seen this for 10 minutes. And there is provision in the legislation that speaks to Tier 2 having some relationship to supply and demand for future growth. We'd be glad to do a deeper dive into that tomorrow, but I can't tell you right now off the top of my head exactly whether this would be legal or not. I think that given that this will, the plan that would support this map or something close to it would need to be sent back to your planning commission anyway. That's certainly something you all could direct them to look at. What of that area would the planning commission suggest be highlighted for going forward? And I would also recommend that the county would look at impacts to the Mattawoman watershed. I realize that there are some protected lands there along the immediate stream corridor, but for a watershed as important as the Mattawoman, I'd recommend that that be looked at as well for this area you're considering adding.
Commissioner Robbins?
Yeah, a couple of things related to Tier 2. Anytime we designate anything as Tier 2, there would be, if we went to actually implement anything, a tremendous price tag, because it's not inexpensive to add water and sewer. My other concern about this particular area being Tier 2 is it sends the absolute worst message imaginable. I mean, we have heard for years how threatened the Mattawoman watershed is, and this is just too close. That this is one part of the county that makes me most uncomfortable to send the message that this will someday be Tier 2.
Commissioner Collins?
The implementation guidance for the Sustainable Growth and Agricultural Preservation Act of 2012 document for Senate Bill 236. The plain meaning of what Tier 2 is under Section 2, which describes Tier 2 areas are areas that are, one, planned to be served by public sewage systems and in the municipal growth element, or mapped locally designated growth areas. You know, I mean, the plain meaning certainly suggests that you could certainly make the argument that this is Tier 2, but I mean, I also understand, you know, just describing some of the potential limitations, but because this has been in the county's planning for years in terms of the deferred development district and the recognition that that area would probably not see any degree of growth until after 2035 anyway. I mean, I think it's an impression, but I think it's a stretch to also state at this time that somehow there's going to be these tremendous costs associated with this area that hasn't been developed up to this point anyway. I believe that certainly there are arguments on both sides, but reading the plain meaning of it and the actual language in the implementation document, it certainly seems to suggest that it wouldn't be out of line for the county to consider that a part of Tier 2.
I would just say that the deferred development district has been around forever, and that's why it's an old vehicle for development. And since that time, since that land was carved out and put in the deferred development district, we've made lots of progress in terms of what we've done in our development district, the growth of that area. Now we put in place a work which is going to require that we focus all of our development, not all, but a good bit of development into that area in order to be able to receive the kind of funding necessary for to improve our transportation and light rail and so forth. So it doesn't make